Tonight on the Maniac After Show, we're covering episodes 1, 2, and 3 of Maniac. We're talking Owen's psychotic break, Annie's past, and the Neverdyne trial that brought them both together. Stay tuned.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Oh, I love this song!
I know, it's so cool. I've never heard it before this.
Same.
All right, AfterBuzzers, welcome to the Maniac After Show here on AfterBuzz TV. Tonight, I am joined by my panel of lovely ladies. To my left, I have Steph Sabraw.
What's up, everyone?
Mina Wahab.
Hey, everyone.
And Yasmine Tanres.
Hi.
And I'm Xia Anderson. Before we jump right into Owen's relationship with his family, his psychotic break, we've got Annie's past and her coping mechanisms, and we've got we jump into Pill A, which is exciting. What were your thoughts overall of the episode so far?
I'm gonna be honest, it took me to episode 3 to get into it, but once episode 3 hit, I'm like, this is a really cool show, and the acting is phenomenal. Just on a writing and filming perspective, it's like a trip, a really good trip that I want to be on. So I'm really excited for the rest of the season.
I think if you weren't to read the synopsis first and you were to just go into it blind, you'd be very confused if you didn't have all these supplemental materials. But I did know the synopsis of it before watching it, and that made it a little easier to understand. And I just thought the acting was phenomenal. It was very dark, and I just liked the themes that were brought up. And from the very beginning, I was like, what's going on with this show? Because it just starts off with the cosmos, and I'm like, what am I watching? It was good. Very different.
Yeah,
definitely. I mean, it's definitely a very weird show to get into, and like you were saying about Earth, how that comes into being, and there's something strange yet intriguing, and something that juxtaposes our reality in a weird sense, even though it's so far removed from what we live in today, visually.
Right.
But emotionally, there's something there.
Well, yeah, I thought that was interesting too, and it definitely, as soon as you jump in, it immediately has you thinking, and that beginning, animation narrated by Justin Theroux, made me start to think about how it's possible that there's any life at all, and how that reality is just as likely as the reality that we live in, because we're the ones that created this reality. What's to say that we couldn't create something completely different? We just decided that the world that we live in today is the way it is because we made it that way.
Totally.
And it's so weird.
It's so weird that did you pick up that it was Justin Theroux when he was talking about,
No, I didn't actually. I read that and was like, oh, that was Justin Theroux. Okay.
Yeah, because I thought, is this omniscient God, and is he trying to explain, this is the world that he's created or we've created, and what kind of a world do we live in now? It's just, yeah.
I love that intro.
Yes.
I was like, what is this? When he was talking about the amoeba, and he's like, let me back it up. And I was like, this is going to be so, so cool. He did such a great job. I love the narration. I feel like it provides that background Mina was saying that we kind of needed with the whole visual trip.
Agreed. Yeah, absolutely.
I also think it's interesting.
It was highly sexualized.
It was.
Yeah, I didn't realize that until I was talking to Yasmine behind the scenes, and she was saying it was sexualized. I'm like, what are you talking about? And then she's reading it to me word for word. I'm like, oh, okay, I get it now. But I just thought it was interesting how you start off the episode with this you're on a very large scale. You're talking about the universe, you're talking about the cosmos, you're talking about this is the world we live in. And then to bring it from that back to a molecular level while you're still talking about the universe, and then back again to these two people's lives where you first start out in episode 1 with Jonah Hill's character Owen, and then Annie, played by Emma Stone, and then you're kind of showing how the focus is on these two people, even though the world is so vast, we're still making the center of the universe these two people. Even though the universe is filled with so many people,
which we all do.
These two people are so important.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. We do that to ourselves. It's hard not to, because you live as who you are. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's. I do like that though. That was really cool. And the show is interesting too, because it has such a 1980s sci-fi feel, where it has really old technology, but it's also somehow really advanced. Which, if anyone's ever played Fallout 4, Tony, in the booth, Tony B. Tony.
Yeah.
It reminded me so much of Fallout 4, the way the computers, you know how when you go into the computers in Fallout to, try to hack your way into something?
Right, with the green screen and everything.
Yes!
Yeah.
It reminded me so much of that. For any other gamers out there, it has such a similar feel. But what do you guys think of the time period? Do you have a time period picked out, or is it more...
I thought it was 80s retro, but
Okay.
also set into a different dimension.
Yeah.
So a little bit different rules, but an 80s retro feel, which I love how TV and Netflix in general with Stranger Things is bringing that look back.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely has that 80s feel with the internet, and there's sort of a block to it though, because there's like, you've got like the gaming and like the ... industry, but then there's also something very modern about it.
Yeah.
With all the weird like technology.
Yeah, like the sanitation, like what the heck?
Yeah.
That's a really cute idea.
That's why I almost feel like time is like not clear in this show, and it's like it goes back to the idea that time is a social construct. Like, what is time? Like, we as humans created the concept of time, and like created the concept of like 365 days in a year, like based off of like the seasons and the sun and the moon and whatever else. So like I thought it was interesting how like we really don't know when it takes place, and if it even takes place, like does it take place on Earth? Like what is happening? Because it is Earth, but not Earth as we know it. So I almost feel like, does it take place in the future, even though there's elements from the past in it? Because there's also elements that don't exist in our reality as we know it today.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to figure out the exact time period.
And there's something about it that makes me feel slightly uncomfortable because it's familiar, but at the same time, it's not. So when I'm watching it, I'm like, this is really weird, and I feel weirdly uncomfortable, and I don't know why.
Yeah, we don't know the rules.
Yeah. That's sort of exactly what it is. But this episode centers around Owen Milgrim, and it kind of comes in, he's being coached to testify on behalf of his brother, and we don't know what that crime is yet, and I want to know what that crime is. It's driving me crazy that we don't. And we also, he clearly comes from a wealthy family, but he lives on his own in a tiny studio apartment. And that becomes apparent a little bit later when he goes to see his family. And he clearly has a very uncomfortable relationship with his family. He kind of doesn't seem comfortable around them. What do you guys think of Owen's relationship with his family sort of in this first episode?
I thought it was really interesting to see, and this was kind of the part that was hard to step into because Jonah Hill played it so amazingly that you really, it was so realistic that you didn't know. I felt really emotional for him, and I was trying to figure out if he even had a psychotic break or if they're just deeming him mentally ill, and it seemed like he was the black swan of the family, but I would definitely hang out with him over the rest of the family for sure.
Agreed.
Yeah, I don't know. I think what's interesting about that, like when you were saying like you don't know if Jonah Hill has mental illness or that, or if he doesn't, if it's just something that they think he has, I kind of felt the same way, and I think Jonah Hill's performance was really indicative of that like nuance. Like, does he have it? Does he not? Because in a lot of films you might see someone where it's very clear, it's very evident that they're crazy, and the way that it's edited and the way it's directed in the acting, it's like almost overacting. But here it was so understated where it like his acting was kind of like, it was subtle, so you can never figure out if he's crazy or if he's sane. And I think he brought something to the role that was like so beautiful and different and kind of like sad, like just very like, he's like an empathetic character. Like you definitely feel for him. There's a certain softness to him, and I think it makes him more likable than the rest of his family. So we're like wondering what's going on with the dynamic.
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly got that really endearing personality, like that likability factor, even though there's something really strange because you see images of him like envisioning the water moving or popcorn just coming out of nowhere in front of him, and like you said, his acting is just so phenomenal. It's just so subdued. And I must say though, like, give it to Jonah Hill, because initially when I saw him, I thought, whoa, who is this Jonah Hill? He looks so gaunty, skinny, and like drained, but he really fit that character. And I think in respect to his family, like, okay, we don't know, I mean, if he truthfully had a mental illness to begin with, because I think it's pretty tough if you diagnose somebody from such a young age, because supposedly he was in a psychiatry hospital like 10 years ago. And you don't know like what the family did to him in that time or how it came into being. So I don't have any compassion for his family, and I think it's very well. It's very tough. Like I don't want to subdue
I
them
don't
either.
blame you.
Yeah,
In the house, they have a family portrait, and he's not in it. And I just thought it was such a great. The world building of this episode and all the episodes was so crazy because you can feel the tension between the family, and I don't have empathy for them either because it makes you think on a deeper level with people struggling from mental illness. There's so many different factors that play into it, and in his case, I don't know if it's chemically imbalanced or it's that he's living with people that aren't the normal but make him feel like he's not normal.
Yes.
Yes. That was actually going to be that's so perfect. Yes. If you thought that Owen's mental break had anything to do with his family, because as a kid growing up, you're there, you count on your family for support and to be there for you. And if they're literally not even drawing you into the family portrait, what does that say about how they feel about you? They can't have treated him like family because it definitely doesn't seem like it. So that's going to definitely wear on especially a young kid's psyche. And it's interesting, too. I have to ask about maybe his relationship with his father, because his father almost seems like he's being very kind to him. And I can't tell, because Owen says, look, you don't need to buy me off. I'm going to testify on behalf of my brother. But I don't necessarily get that was his father's motivation. What did you guys think?
I don't like it's so hard in a story where you don't know what's real and what's not to know anybody's motivation.
Exactly.
I think that's what's so confusing about it. Like you can say like what propels this character to do that. It's just everything feels so convoluted, and it's still the exploration phase where we're getting to know his character that I feel like it's nearly impossible to know what a character's motivation is, especially as a secondary character, not as the leading role, when we don't even know what the leading character's motivation is. You know, like how are we supposed to know what his father's motivation is if we don't even know Jonah Hill's or Emma Stone's? I mean, we kind of know Emma Stone's. We'll get into it in episode 2, but I don't know. I just think it's hard to really determine any of that at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was interesting when the Owen and his dad are walking down the street, and at some point his dad is saying, like, you know, if you want to move back or not stay in Long Island, you can. I don't know why he's trying to be nice to him. I guess it's for the brother's reasons. But I'm also curious about the brother's case. I'm not quite understanding this case. And is he actually alive, dead? Like, I don't get that.
They're definitely, and they do it throughout. I mean, we're only talking about episodes 1, 2, and 3. Yeah, they do it throughout these 3 episodes where they tease at it a lot, but they never tell you what it is, and for some reason, I don't know why it feels rapey to me. And I don't know if that's just where my brain is going. I'm just like, he definitely did something.
He exhibits a kind of he doesn't sit right with me. And it's maybe because I've seen him in another role where he is such a phenomenal actor and he was kind of a very violent character. So I don't know if it's that or if I'm picking up what you are too.
Okay. Either way, he's a great actor because he's portraying that if that's what they're trying to get across, he's doing a great job. Yeah, and his brother is the one that shows up in his delusions sometimes in like weird disguises, like glasses and a mustache, and he's always telling Owen of his destiny, which is to save the world, and he keeps telling him about the pattern and that a female agent will reach out and make contact, and that's another thing that you think it's like a delusion, but you're right. In this world, you don't know. It kind of has you questioning that.
We don't know what the rules are.
Yeah.
We don't know what, like, in our world today, we have social norms. In this world, the social norms feel totally different.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yes.
we don't know if they're, like, actually crazy or if, like, this is just how people act.
Right.
You know?
And, we also find out in this episode that he has not been taking his medication. He's sitting there listening to his sessions with an old therapist. And I don't know if that's his way of trying to do it on his own. Do you think that he wants to try to conquer it on his own? Or do you think perhaps he doesn't feel that he's crazy after all? Or kind of maybe why he stopped taking his medication?
I think it's a really interesting point and this show does a really good job of being careful when they're talking about mental illness and the different ways to combat it. And I think for his case, it's that pills are a solution for some people, but it's probably, if he feels averse to it and is avoiding it, then maybe it isn't for him. Maybe it does make it worse or onset the psychotic break that they allude to. But I'm not sure yet. I'm still figuring that out.
I mean, it's always that question of drug or therapy.
Right.
And in this case, it seems to be for him more like, well, I'll rather listen to the therapy and read the books, there's a self-help book as well, than take the drugs. And there's maybe like a foundational reason behind it also as to why he was hospitalized. You know, there's so many side effects. I mean, it's crazy when you even read the ads or listen to the ads in today's world of like, take this against that, and these are all the side effects. So yeah, I always think that's the big question.
Yeah, I definitely feel, for some reason, I get the feeling that he's torn between wanting to deal with it himself and also maybe thinking that he's not crazy and that he really might have a destiny beyond what he's doing now. He just kind of has that sort of feel to him where he hopes that there's something more.
And rightfully so. Because
Yeah.
he does prove himself to do that. Like,
Absolutely. This leads me to another, like, very odd. I just wanted to, like, highlight a weird thing in this, talking about different social norms. There's a service called AdBuddy. That shows up a lot.
Yes.
It's so weird. So it seems like they'll pay for just about anything for you in exchange for letting one of their employees read ads to you.
which are tailor-made.
Yes.
And that's creepy as
And I
well.
Very
think-
creepy.
Yeah, is it creepy though? Because we live in a world of advertising where, like, there are so many different types of ads on Facebook, on YouTube, like, specifically targeted to you.
Totally.
Like, even, like if you have an iPhone, like, they can pick up, oh, someone's calling me right now. They can pick up on, like, things that you're saying. And, like, there have been times I've said something in conversation and then I've had an ad come up about the very thing I was talking about, which is so creepy. But I don't think, like, in this world, it's anything out of the norm of what we've experienced. It just seems that way because it's so in your face. But there's advertising all around us right now. There's billboards. We're constantly being marketed to.
And
all the time.
They're not paying for anything for us. So maybe this is a win for them.
Well, in advertising, you have to pay to, like, show advertisements. So instead of them paying, like, an online service, they're paying the person to reach
Right.
them directly. So it's the same concept. It's just done in a different way.
And they know they're going to buy something, one of their products, because
Yeah,
it's
of
definitely
course.
something that they're enticed to. And that's exactly how we fall into those traps as well, like Instagram and all these, like, ads. Oh, let me shop cart, like, let me buy that. You know?
And you know, the strongest form of advertisement is word of mouth. If your friend tells you to buy something, you're more likely to buy it than if someone else is to tell you. So if you have someone walking with you, like, as a buddy, a friend, if
Right.
you will, that is the strongest form of advertisement in this world. It really is, in the world that they've created.
Which is interesting because they also created a friend proxy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's an odd one. But you're right. Maybe it's not that odd. I mean, people pay for escorts all of the time now. So what's the difference between paying for that and just paying for a friend? Especially when you're really busy, maybe you don't have time to make friends.
People do that even nowadays. There's,
Yeah.
like, so many sites where people, like,
Yeah.
even Bumble does that.
Yeah,
Bumble,
yeah.
like, and it's not even weird anymore. It's
Even
actually become the norm.
Craigslist.
Yeah, people.
Yeah, people find friends on Craigslist.
And you know
like,
why? Because right now the world needs connection now more than anything else. We're so disconnected, even though, look, we're all connected, right?
Jesus, we all have
yeah.
a laptop.
Seriously, we're all
There's a
sucked
I
lot
got
to
my
talk
paper.
about. There's 3 episodes. I need my notes, okay?
That's true. Speaking of which, we're nearing the end of episode 1. We find out that Owen loses his job, although I guess that might have been towards the middle of the episode. And he hears the ad for the Neverdyne study. I believe with AdBuddy, that's how he finds out about it, right? Yeah. And so he agrees to volunteer as a test subject for a drug that wants to, quote, eradicate all unnecessary forms of human pain, which I can see 100% why that speaks to him and why he would be more prone to want to volunteer for something like that. That and he needs money, apparently. And so he gets to, the study or his intake question, and the last question they ask him isn't a question at all. They just stare at him until he asks what's going on. And then she tells him, your defense mechanisms are fungible. I had to look that
we
up.
looked that up as well, didn't we?
Yes.
Replaceable, huh?
Yeah.
You can't
which
just
is very
use the
strange.
word replaceable. Like why?
know,
like
right?
why?
But I love that. I think everything in this is so specific and tailored to this world that they're
Yeah.
building.
It
Yeah.
has to be because it also even sounds more intellectual, more scientific in a way,
And what was the
also
word?
eccentric.
Yeah, didn't they use another
Furlough.
word? Furlough. When he was
Furlough.
let go from work.
Because a furlough is a leave of absence, but there's also another definition for it. I need to look it up. Something about like when you're in prison and like the time you have away from prison is
Yeah.
a furlough.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that they would use the word furlough, which has that alternate meaning. Instead of just saying leave
Terminated.
of absence,
Right.
terminate anything.
Anything else.
Anything else. You have so many words you can use
I
in
mean,
the English
it's
language.
definitely richly written, the script.
Yes.
Everything about it.
But I also think that the choice of words lends it to like have like a double meaning.
Yes.
Yeah, they do a great job, and it makes you think. And I've learned a new word because of it. Thank you. But how do you think they got to that conclusion with that? Because they don't ask him a question. They literally just stare at him until, I guess, either you say something or you don't say something. How do you think they got to the conclusion that his defense mechanisms are fungible?
I think it's that you were okay being told what to do, almost like you're I don't know. Obviously, I feel like it's up to discussion, but it's the point is these people coming and are down for this trial want to be fixed, whatever that may be. So if they're telling them something and they know in their mind that I'm going to be fixed if I get through this, they're going to wait and listen and just wait for it, which I feel like makes a little bit of sense.
I mean, this scene is so indicative. I don't know if you guys have ever watched The Shawshank Redemption, but it
Yes.
felt like I was watching the same thing where you see like 3 different times that Morgan Freeman's character Red is called into this like room to see if he's finally been rehabilitated, is ready to like have his leave of absence from prison and leave. And every single time he goes in, he's like, yes, I'm a changed man. And then they deny him the chance to leave and be free. And on that 3rd time, Morgan Freeman's character Red goes in and he is a changed man. And he says, you know what? I don't give a damn what you think. You can do whatever you want. And he doesn't really care about the approval or the power dynamic anymore. And it is at that point where they finally let him go. And that happens in V for Vendetta as well. It's like a recurring theme of like when you finally say no to authority and you don't really care, then you're allowed to escape.
You're free.
And it just felt so weird. Like it felt like I was rewatching
That's a
another
great
scene,
point.
but
Good
done in a
point, yeah.
totally different way. It was so cinematic. It was beautiful. And it's just so cool that we have content like this on Netflix of all places. Like the fact that our world is changing, like our ways of viewing content has changed as a society.
Nice, Tony. Nice. And that takes us to the end of the episode. Owen finally meets Annie, and he thinks that because he keeps seeing her face in ads, which we'll get to that, and he thinks that she is his female handler that's supposed to pass on instructions, and they come to a thing where he kind of is bothering her so much that I think she very cleverly goes along with his delusions because she realizes what's going on. She's like, okay, the only way I'm going to get him to stop this right now and get him to calm down is to kind of play along with it. Do you think that was smart, or do you think that's going to cause problems later?
That was a good response, to be honest.
Yeah.
I felt like she handled that very cool because she could have been really freaked out, especially because she hadn't actually even passed that defense mechanism test, like based on her emotions. She's very like infuriating, and in that moment it was kind of surprising that she took it at ease and at calm was like, okay, just don't blow the cover. So I mean, I don't know if that moment there is what has basically made the unfolding of what is to come between the two.
Yeah.
But I felt like it was the correct response in that moment, because what would he have done next otherwise?
Right.
How would he have reacted?
I completely agree. I feel like their motives are mutually beneficial. They're in line with each other. While obviously hers are more drug based. Like she does have this addiction to pill A, I believe it is, where she's just willing to do whatever it takes to get it. So she had to figure it out, but it ends up being mutually beneficial for him because I think having her there is a crutch.
Yeah.
It's a good crutch for him.
Yeah, I agree. And she definitely is going to be, I feel like at some point, brutally honest with him, which might be good for him. I like, and they have they're very different characters. They're very opposites. They mirror each other, and that's going to be interesting, I feel like. Which takes us into episode 2, Windmills, this one is called. And this episode focuses on Annie Landsberg, who's played by Emma Stone, and it opens up with her smoking and taking out an A-shaped pill and snorting it. She does not waste any time swallowing pills. She just snorts them.
Straight up the nose.
Yes. And she passes out and is surrounded throughout the day by people who I'm guessing are her roommates that are coming in and out of the house. And they seemed very unconcerned that she's passed out on the couch all day, which definitely leads me to believe that this is like a normal occurrence for her.
Right.
That they're just very used to her doing this sort of thing. And so that sort of leads into her realizing that that was her last pill and she needs to go find more. And I really like the scene where she goes to the park and her dealer is just this young kid who's playing, was it chess?
Yeah.
With a very rude koala.
They call it a dude wad.
I love the koala.
Yes.
That was weird though.
I know he was weird, but just visually, I'm like, I want that koala.
Right? Like, I would love to have one of those.
That's
That
gonna
was
be a
like
really
Donnie,
good marketing
that was like Donnie
toy.
Darko or something.
Yeah.
Or like, I don't know. I just feel like everything I see is like a pop culture reference where I can like reference another movie
You're
or
so
something
good at that.
else.
Yeah.
But there's no other show I've seen like this that allows me to draw on all these different like genres of like film, television, novels. So it's like so rich and complex and involves so many different themes. And I don't know, like this is such a great show.
No, I agree. They do such an awesome job at that.
And chess is so symbolic. Like, out of all the games that they could play, for it to be chess, a game that's specifically founded on the premise of, like, strategy, thinking multiple steps ahead, having a plan, being flexible in that plan, and then coming to a conclusion of checkmate where you trap your opponent, I feel like that's very symbolic because it has to do with this whole concept of having the pharmaceutical trial and having this test and, like, thinking all these steps through.
That's a really interesting point because didn't her flatmate then say something about you've got to have a goal? Mm-hmm. Because she didn't seem to have one. She was just like at home, just nodding off on drugs and like,
She's like, have
not
some
paying
goals.
rent on
like,
time.
I took your money from you. And
But that was, that's, I feel like the life of an addict or someone who wants something so bad, nothing
Short term.
else. Yeah, short term. There's no plan. So it is the opposite of chess.
And it's
She was
so-
playing
yeah.
checkers.
And it's so interesting because like that whole game, chess is all about the long haul. It's about you sacrifice things in the beginning so that you can get to your end goal. And like those two characters, the drug dealer and Emma Stone's character, it's all about instant gratification. It's like literally the opposite of chess. You don't go for the quick kill. You go for the long plan and sacrifice your pieces, even if they're great pieces, if you know it's going to serve your end purpose. And that's something that it was like such a nice contrast to see.
Yeah. That's a
but
good
then
point
it-
with mental illness too, because it is the long game. Like everyone, I feel like a lot of people deal with some form of anxiety, depression or something, and it's never like an easy fix. You have to plan and like know that there's steps to be taken.
Right.
Yeah.
She does say that. She does quote that then at some point, doesn't she? Say something like, I'm not crazy, I'm just goal orientated, when she does finally go after the drug.
Yes. I
That's
like
her
that
goal
line a
there.
lot.
Yeah, that was like my favorite line.
Great point.
Yes, absolutely. So to that end, yes, she literally does whatever it takes to go get her drugs, and that leads her to her father to get money for a bus ticket. I think maybe for a very short amount of time, that was going to be her plan to go see her sister, even though we find out later that she can't go see her sister. So I don't know what that was all about. But she finds her dad in the yard, in a pod called a void, which took me a minute to get to avoid. He's a void.
Oh
Yeah, well, actually, when I saw it written, I was like, avoid. And then you said, oh, avoid. I was like, oh, I see. Yeah.
I don't know if that's what they intended to do, but that's definitely where my mind went. He's literally avoiding everything.
But also a void is like, the noun form void is like a huge gap in something. Like if you have a void in your life, and that's kind of like, yeah, like all their words, everything is so intentional in the show. Nothing's an accident.
They do a really great job with that. And it definitely seems like he's not taking it well. So she's an addict and he's just completely avoiding and hiding away. And it seems kind of unfair because it seems like her father sort of failed her by leaving her on her own and hiding away from the world. And she has nobody else to rely on. She has nobody. So she has no father, she has no sister, and she has no mother. And that leads to, instead of going to, the bus, she goes to the bus station but doesn't get on the bus to go see her sister. She ends up walking into a shop to blackmail somebody, because apparently in this universe blackmailing is perfectly legal. And she just walks right into a store and pays to get dirt on a woman who's going to get her into the trial.
Really creepy.
Yeah, that's so strange.
Basically the internet, though, a little bit, if you creep hard enough.
I
Yeah,
had
you
to
can get
put.
dirt on anyone through social media.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I had to put subtitles on at this point because I was getting really confused and not understanding what this man was saying, what the interaction is there between them two, what were all the papers there in the background that the women were sorting out. Like, it was just bizarre. Then it kind of made sense when she followed up with this woman that he had named.
Right. And that was Patricia. And so that's where the friend proxy comes in. And she goes and, cancels her appointment. And so I was a little bit confused on this part, but it seemed like she just tells a story and
It's like
She's just-
improv.
yeah.
That
That
was
was really funny.
like she's
I
just
thought that was hilarious.
yeah.
It's totally improv, and you act. I feel like what it seemed like is just you go along with the story, and it seemed like Patricia was the one who was the explainer of the friendship, and
Right.
Emma clearly wasn't going along with it.
No, and she was not doing a
Or
good
Annie.
job.
Yeah.
But is that like a reflection of our reality of like fake friendships? Because
Such a good point. Oh my gosh.
I mean, it was just so well set up with like the bonsai tree and, oh, do you remember when we met here? And obviously Annie was just not having it, not playing along with it. But it kind of exists today in that realm of like friend requests, Facebook and stuff like that.
Totally.
Or like pretending to be friends with someone when you know that they're successful or famous at a certain point. Like,
Yeah,
I
for
knew,
some reason.
I knew
Yeah.
you in high school. Yeah.
Yep. That's definitely something that we do now. We don't need a service for it. Jeez. And that's it is interesting to see how normal it is for people. It's no big deal. She just asks if she's a mark, like it's an everyday occurrence. And then she's like, but why am I a mark? Like, I have no money. I have nothing. But that's her in to get into the study where she knows the drugs are being made. So that's how I keep wanting to call her Emma also.
I know.
And
It gets confusing.
because you know her as this actress and she's so well known, but she plays this part so well.
Yeah,
Yes.
you forget she's
You do.
Emma Stone, but it's just
In your brain,
yeah.
Emma. Annie. So she finally gets to her intake test, but she actually fails to get in. And I think it's because she doesn't say anything.
I think it was because the whole thing, she was trying to say stuff that would get her into the test.
Yeah.
So every explanation, you could tell she wasn't feeling those emotions.
No.
She didn't even know what emotion she's feeling. I feel like she's such in a dark place right now, dealing with her trauma, that we find out later that she didn't know what to say, and she was so desperate that she was going to say anything that she thought sounded interesting.
I agree. And I think a lot of it too is when it gets to the end, it seemed like maybe her defense mechanisms weren't fungible because hers were just to kind of shut down. Like, she never said anything to kind of be like, okay, why are you just staring at me? So it kind of, she just shut down. So they're like, well, we can't do anything with you anyway.
You know, that's a learned response, right? Because her dad is like that, and that's all she's seen her whole life. So it's definitely something that's learned, not innate.
Yeah.
But she also was so eager during that test. And she was just like responding descriptively rather than emotionally. And that was the doctor who had pointed it out at some point as well.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Great point.
Absolutely. And then she basically, and this is where she actually does use the blackmail. She threatens her daughter to get in, which definitely, I'd say, shows how desperate she is and volatile, yes, to get in. And so she finally gets into the study. And I really like how they merged the two episodes here at the end, and then it kind of just effortlessly flows into the
Yes.
third episode.
I love that.
They did a good job.
It's like a movie.
And so we go into the third episode, and it starts with them coming out of taking pill. Well, they take pill A. So at the end of the last episode, they take pill A. And so episode 3 starts out with them coming out of pill A. And we finally found out what these pills do. Pill A seeks out traumas and pulls them to the surface. Pill B identifies defense mechanisms, and Pill C is the end of the rainbow, confrontation and acceptance. It sounds so like
Very
picturesque.
enticing.
Yes. And they realize that Dr. Fujita realizes that Annie has taken the pill before, and we find out that Owen didn't take his pill. He did his little...
Did he actually not, though?
I think so, because the A was in the corner of the room as they're walking out. And I mean, he has definitely a history of just flicking his pills at plants and other things.
I see. I missed that.
Maybe he knows that he's sane.
Well, and that's what I was going to ask. Like, why do you think he decided not to take the pill? Do you think it was because he didn't want to relive his worst day, or because he doesn't want to give up his delusions, or do you think he's just not, he thinks he's not crazy at all?
I think he just doesn't want anything to alter his reality more than it already has been. And also, I feel like this whole episode deals with, like, memory, right? And
Yes.
I can't help but think of Harry Potter, like how we find out that even when you, like, take your memory out and you put it in a pen sieve so you can store it forever, when you revisit it, sometimes you realize that it's been tampered with. Because even when we remember past traumas, we don't remember it in the same way.
Right.
Because we have defense mechanisms to recreate a memory so that we can cope with it better. So we don't even know that when they're revisiting their past traumas, if that really is what happened or if it's how they've interpreted it later on.
Yeah, absolutely. Even happy memories. Our memories are not accurate at all, ever. It's just, especially because it happened so long ago with certain things, we don't remember it how it was, even the good ones. So no matter what, your memories are pretty much faulty to begin with.
And sometimes we either idealize people or we vilify them, depending on how we want to interpret the event. So sometimes we just have, like, a black and white interpretation of things.
But that makes me question in this then, if pill A, let's say, is meant to present the reality of that specific trauma. I think not
so.
what you've
wonder,
constructed
like,
in
that,
your
what
mind.
actually happened, though?
Yeah.
But reality is all subjective when you really think about it. Like, there's what happened, but from whose perspective? It always has to be from a perspective.
Yes.
There's is it from God's perspective? Is it like an all-knowing being looking at that event? Is
Well,
it from
see, here's
their
the thing.
perspective?
This is like well, how can we say? Is it a man-made or a computer-made type of drug?
Okay.
So I
maybe-
think we'll find out through
Yeah.
the transition of the story.
I think
Yeah.
it's meant for them to look at it objectively from the outside.
I think so too. And I think he didn't want to see it.
Yeah.
But
That's
this
kinda
whole
what I was thinking.
story has been told from different points of view. It's not told by one narrator. That's what's so confusing. Like, you have episode 1 and it's kind of told by Jonah Hill's perspective, but not the whole time. There's times where it is being told.
It's not Justin Theroux the whole...
I don't
He's
feel
the
like
omniscient one.
Yeah, but I feel like it switches back and forth. It's not told in Justin
Yeah,
Theroux's voice.
I think
the
it's
whole
up to
time.
discuss. I think that's the point.
Yeah,
exactly
that's why
what
it's
you're
different
saying.
points of reality. It's not
Yeah,
the same thing
like,
being
what is
told by the same
reality?
narrator.
Versus
Yes, definitely.
fantasy.
And we
Exactly.
also find out why Annie takes pill A over and over again. And this is a quote directly from the show, which is, this is ridiculously heartbreaking. She says, every time I take that pill, I have to live through the worst day of my life. I have to listen to myself say the worst, ugliest things I have ever said to anyone. And it ends with the worst thing that ever happened. And I effing love it because I get to be with her. And that is so heartbreaking. And we get to a point where Dr. Muramoto dies of a drug overdose, and she has a chance to take the entire bottle of A pills and run, but she doesn't, instead choosing to stay and make sure she continues on with the trial, which is really interesting. And I wonder if it's because in some level she actually wants to move on,
yeah.
or actually maybe doesn't want to feel that pain anymore. Definitely
I
stands
love that.
Yeah. I mean, you would want to break free from that kind of a trauma.
And she got to see what happens when you just continuously live in an addiction or in this place where you're reliving your trauma.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And we also find out what Owen's worst day was, and it's not what he said it was. The actual worst day of his life was his first schizo-paranoid break with reality, when he screamed at the girl he liked that she knew she had been paid by his parents to love him, marry him, and have his kids. Which, on this one, it's again, it kind of plays with whether or not you think it's real. Because I feel like there might be some truth to that. From what I've seen of his family, I'd say it's not altogether impossible.
I agree. And it plays with what we were saying before, that is it his parents who caused like that onset?
Right.
Like by thinking that he needs that, like making him feel like he can't find love in a natural way.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh my gosh. That was really sad too.
I mean, ultimately, I feel like a lot of traumas and mental, things that occur is because of deep-rooted things that are from the family, stem from the family, and a lack of love. And this is really all about like how Earth has come into being and the connection of people and things, everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And we also get to see, we finally get to see the elusive Dr. Mantle Ray in all of his VR sexual glory.
Oh my god.
What an introduction.
Strangest thing, right?
What an introduction.
What I thought the
His
weirdest...
toupee on.
Yes, that was
High
going to
priestess
say.
of Atlantis.
What I thought was the most interesting about that is he barely seemed phased that she walked in and saw him with like the suck-o-matic or whatever, like stuck to him.
Squeezing jelly and stuff.
He was just so quick to like put the toupee back on his head. He's like, no, you can't see me without my toupee, but I'm gonna stand here with this thing on my chest. Like, no
That was
problem.
hilarious.
Oh, no shame, that man.
Another point of social norms and like
Yeah.
what's considered embarrassing and what's normal.
Exactly.
True.
So Tammy's
Very
like, I'm
true.
just living out my sexual fantasies. What's up?
It was a great, what I love about this show so far, and especially that scene, is that they let the comedic moments be those types of things, and they let the mental illness not be the butt of the joke, like instead the more serious part. So they do a really good job of playing with all emotions.
Yes,
Yes.
definitely. That is a really good point. And so we finally get to where they're taking pill B. And the computer, first of all, the computer cries. I feel like we're going to have to, we're not going to have time to get to that. We're going to have to cover that the next episode.
There's so much to cover.
Yes. But the computer cries and it melds 1 and 9 together. 1 and 9 being Owen and Annie. And so they take pill B and it goes right into them waking up as a married couple in Long Island. And that's how we end episode 3.
What's going on?
I had to keep watching. I couldn't. I know. I was like, but I'm not going to say anything. But we do have a really awesome special segment. I believe we have some news and gossip rather from Steph.
Oh,
AfterBuzz TV News.
it was basically, we'll keep it short. I know we're running out of time. Emma Stone recently opened up about lifelong struggles with severe anxiety, and the show's core message is that it's normal to feel normal when you're dealing with stuff internally. To reach out and connect with people is vital. And so I think it's really awesome that when the show's coming out, she's coming out with this really, really emotional story and how she's dealt with acting. And I know Yasmine...
Yeah. Well, she went on Monday to the Child Mind Institute and talked about like anxiety, the connection between creativity and anxiety, and how the discussion of being authentic about mental health is a huge game changer. And that's what everybody needs to feel comfortable and confident about.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Because mental illness is, and this episode where the entire show speaks to the mental health crisis that we're facing today. And there are I got some stats from mentalhealthamerica.net. 1 in 5 adults have a mental health condition. That's over 40 million Americans. That's more than the populations of New York and Florida combined.
Dang.
And there's this weird stigma attached to it because people don't talk about it. And 56% of American adults with mental illness do not receive treatment. Even in Maine, with the best access, apparently only 41.4% of adults with mental illness do not receive treatment.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's a lot.
That's really great. I love hearing the stats of it, because the more we talk about it, the more it won't be stigmatized and the more people can get help, because you're not a weirdo because you were dealing with something.
And this show really represents it in such a beautifully shot and well covered story.
Yeah. I have to agree. And I have to say, without getting too into it, I wish that, because I have been suffering from like very severe anxiety since I was about 15. And when it first was happening, I wish that I'd heard more people talk about it, because I literally thought I was going insane. But the more you learn about it, and it really does make you feel better. So yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
That's why I gotta have the confidence and
Yes.
comfort to talk
Look
about
at her!
it.
Look at
Yes. We're all there to
everybody.
support each other.
Yeah. Let's see. We had no. Nope,
Just
never
some
mind.
predictions?
Just some predictions.
Quick
Yeah, we'll do
predictions.
some quick predictions.
I know, I hate
AfterBuzz TV predictions.
Okay, I can start. Well, we know that Pill, we're gonna get them together, so I'm wondering what their dynamic is, and I'm really curious to see if this is supposed to be the next stage of the like fixing, which is the point of it, I guess. What is the purpose of them being together? So I just want to see more insight into how Pill B is going to like live itself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
I just want to know what reality is.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's all I have to say. Like nothing else.
Yes. I'm just hoping that they'll explain what was supposed to happen as opposed
Yes.
to what happened with them accidentally melding.
That's
I wanna know.
exactly.
I want to
It's like they
know.
were meant to be. Even before that.
That's
Right?
true. He kept seeing her everywhere.
Yeah.
We'll find out, because next week, Thursday at 10 p.m., we are going to be covering episodes 4 through 7. 4, 5, no, 4,
6.
4 through 6.
4, 5, 6.
4,
Yes.
5, and 6.
We want to get
that
into
way.
B. That's what we want to
Yeah.
do.
3 more episodes. And hopefully we can get through all of that in time. Until then, where can the fans find you to keep up with discussions?
Oh, I'm on Yasmine Tanres.
Hey everyone, you can find me across social media at Mina Makes Magic, and stay tuned for a very special segment next week where we'll talk about like all the cool movies that are very similar and linked to this show Maniac.
Yes, Mina's so good at that. You guys can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Steph Sabraw.
And you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Xia_land. It's spelled XIA_land. Until then, we will see you next week. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.